I guess we'll get going then. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the RCA Forum, the Commercial Forum, I should say, with the Pensacola Association of REALTORs. Before I introduce our great speaker today, Scott Luth, I wanted Michael Mangrum, the president of the association and the past chair of the commercial committee, to give us an update on what's going on regarding to the forums being hybrid or in person. Mike?
You're muted, Mike.
I know, I still can't get that down. Okay. Thanks, Joe, and everybody. We really appreciate you being here and participating today. I know that each of you is as anxious as we are to get back to our live meetings. And with that in mind, all year long, we've looked at the safety of our membership, and that has kind of led our decision making. Recently, with news of CDC rule changes, our board has met and made the decision to further open up the office. So the office has been open, but now it's really open. The doors are open. There is no mask requirement. Obviously, if you're vaccinated and feel like you've got the antibodies on board, that's certainly, I think everyone is welcoming those individuals into their businesses and whatnot without mask. If you are not feeling well, we do ask that you be respectful of others and stay home for now. It's not just you, but it's those most vulnerable that we might come into contact that we need to worry about. So, I say often you can't legislate common sense or kindness, but I know that everybody on this call has a great deal of both. So if you're not feeling well, if you think you may have been compromised, then just stay away. And we're going to offer virtual as well. So just for the numbers, education started last week or a couple of weeks ago with live education in class. 2 or 3 weeks ago, it started with 20 individuals per session. We're now allowing up to 40. So we've doubled our capacity on education programs. And with that in mind, we feel like that these programs, these commercial forums and other meetings of this sort that take place at the association will start to be offered live as well. Now, this is the June meeting, and I don't know if everybody realizes, but we typically take July off. And that's going to work real well for us this year. And just a few weeks, about the middle of the month, we are getting some system upgrades delivered, some new equipment delivered for our meeting room. This new equipment will allow us to stream and video broadcast our meetings so that they can be done in a truly hybrid fashion. I was receiving text messages this morning from individuals that really like this online option. And I think it's a great option to offer for those that are either not feeling well, inconvenienced, or perhaps don't live close enough to drive into the Pensacola office for an early morning Thursday meeting. So for a lot of reasons, having that option is wonderful. We anticipate that'll be in place for August. So the month of July off gives us time to do the installation, work out the bugs, and hopefully you'll be getting your next announcement that we're meeting in person in the Pensacola office. Even the occupancy by then may further loosen up, so we may be able to have more than 40. But at this time, what we would do is we would take reservations for the first 40 to be live. We would ask that you go online, register, and that those 40 would be able to come live, and anyone else would be able to join us virtually. But again, if CDC continues to relax their rules, then we will as well. We're going to follow them. So it might be that we're looking at a capacity crowd even by August. That's my hope. And Joe, hopefully this will be our final virtual one for a while. I was thinking how sorry I felt for last year's president, having to deliver bad news at every meeting about closings and delays. And I've had the good fortune at these meetings to deliver good news about our reopening. So I feel really fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. But we look forward to today's speaker. And again, I appreciate everyone being online for this call.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I do appreciate it. And I'm pitch hitting for Susan Carroll. She's the chair of the Commercial Alliance Committee. She's in her car and she's not driving, or she's going to maybe be listening when she is driving. And I just wanted to thank everyone on the committee and everybody's participation. Our speaker, most of the folks know him. In fact, I've known Scott a long time, and I'd like to say a very long time, I think, in as long as I've been around here. And Scott's a relentless warrior for economic development in our whole region. And, you know, he's done a great thing. And every time I've seen Scott speak, I've learned some new information and some helpful information. But I have his bio here. I'm going to go through it. But I found some new things about Scott's and things that we may have in common. So Scott began his economic development career in Pensacola as the Senior Vice President of Economic Development with the Greater Pensacola Chamber of Commerce in 2011. In 2015, he established the Economic Development Department as a separate entity, now called FloridaWest, which is a 501c6 organization. Their sole mission is to create and expand economic prosperity in the greater Pensacola area. He's responsible for Greater Pensacola Economic Development Strategy, which includes business expansion and retention, entrepreneurial development, workforce development, attraction, activities to market the Pensacola region, and asset development. Beginning in 2007, and this is interesting part because my background was in the utilities also, so I didn't know this about Scott. Scott worked as a business development manager for Entergy Mississippi Incorporated in Jackson, Mississippi. It's an energy company that provides power to more than 430 people in 45 of the Mississippi's 82 counties. So with Entergy, he identified business opportunities, developed target industry strategies, and tracked industrial leads. So another parallel to mine, Scott. So that's great. Prior to working to Entergy, Luth had held positions with Executive Vice President of Glasgow Barron County Industrial Development Economic Authority in Glasgow, Kentucky. He's previously worked in economic development in Cleveland, Mississippi, Batesville, Mississippi, Corinth, Mississippi, and Natchez. An Ohio native, which I guess I heard one time, Scott, but I kind of forgot. And a 1992 graduate of Mississippi State University with a degree in management. Scott is married with 2 children. And thanks again, Scott, for agreeing to speak today.
No, again, I appreciate it. And always enjoy coming and working with everybody in this group. And again, what you guys do every single day is obviously tremendous for our economy and supporting all of our companies and their growth strategies as well. So I'm always happy to come and visit with you guys today. Just to begin with, just quick, just quick reminder. So FloridaWest is, Joe said, we used to be part of the Chamber of Commerce. We split out, gosh, it's probably been 7 years now, 6-7 years ago. We are the standalone economic development agency for Pensacola and Escambia County. We are 80% funded by the city and the county and 20% funded by private sector members that support our missions. We really have, I should say, we have investors more so than we have members that support us. We've only got about 5 different investors. It's your Gulf Power, as you would expect, some of our large construction companies, engineering firms, and those types of things that support our board and our mission from the private sector perspective. Really, probably one of the things that really has surprised me over this last year, and I've spoke to a couple of groups now. We have been busier with projects this past year more than any other time since I've been here in Pensacola, which is obviously not what I expected. With COVID, obviously with our, with the restrictions in travel, with the restrictions of being able to kind of meet people. And so some of that was just continuing to work the pipeline that we've built over the last 4 or 5 years of projects. But a significant portion of that is maybe what you guys are reading as well. And those are companies that are unhappy elsewhere. They're unhappy with the way their states have handled COVID. They're unhappy with the tax structure that they're being put a lot of pressure on. And so that's driving a lot of interest and a lot of inquiries to move south. The other thing that's driving a good bit of our work is the warehouse and distribution work. We have significant number of inquiries and projects that are looking all over I-10. And so we're obviously actively trying to compete and look for those investments and those projects that are coming down. So I guess the real thing is, and it's across the board, we have smaller We have smaller entrepreneurial companies that we're working with that are interested in our small business incubator, possibly expanding and growing here instead of the communities that they're currently located in. So it's not just the big projects or warehouse and distribution. I wish I could pinpoint it and say it was just one sector, but it's not. It's across all sectors, across a lot of different industry as well, that has an interest in looking at the South and looking at Pensacola in particular. So that's kind of the thing that's sort of been sort of surprising with what we're looking at. I'll kind of work from the top of the county coming down. We do have a company that's actually acquired some property up in Century. They're an agricultural processing type company that's actually renovating some property up there. We're hopeful that they'll be up and running here over the next year. They've got a lot of work to do, but they do process an agricultural process. So we're not quite ready to announce them or what they're doing. But I think that's gonna be a great job for up in that area and supporting the companies that are supporting the community and the efforts that are going on up there. Kind of continuing to move down, we're seeing strong expansion and growth out of our existing companies. And that's everything from International Paper to Ascend Manufacturing to, obviously, no surprise, the McDavid lumber mill with all the construction and trying to increase capacity and support the construction boom that's going on here. Obviously, just the new growth as well as the obviously the damage attributable to the hurricanes as well. So they're at full capacity and looking to continue to grow and expand. And so that's good for us. It's good for jobs and good for the community. And that's across all of those industry sectors up in sort of the central part of our community. Moving back down, we have the what used to be the old Superfund site that we've been working with the county on. We have probably 8 different companies or inquiries to that property right now. One significant project, manufacturing project, that's looking at a large piece of that property. And then we have probably a half a dozen smaller projects that are also looking at some of the out parcels. Now that the city and the county have actually got that property where we can put that back into hopefully into production for the community and job creation. So that's also very exciting. Moving down into kind of the Pensacola area, we've got 4 different companies that are sort of innovation technology related companies that we're working with. A couple of them are expanding companies, which is great, that are already here, that are looking at growth strategies. And then we actually have one new company that was based out of Birmingham, but some of their principals were out in California, as well as one of the other principals is up in New York, and they were looking for a place to consolidate their operation, and they're in the medical technology sector. And so that's gonna be about 30 or 40 jobs for the community. And a lot of what we've been doing, we're kind of holding on, obviously, COVID and the company's willingness to formally announce and do open houses and ribbon cuttings. So those are all the things that we're kind of sitting on there. The Singapore Technologies company out at the airport, they're very close to finishing up their design on hangar number 2. So sometime this summer, we hope to actually do a groundbreaking on their second hangar. So that'll be another 400 jobs committed to the community that will begin to construction on hangar number 2, and then job growth associated with that. So really, again, we'll watch and see what happens at the national level, but right now we are seeing a tremendous amount of expansion and growth just in our manufacturing, our technology, and our entrepreneurial sector here in Pensacola and Escambia County. So it's been an exciting time, a very busy time. Hopefully you all are seeing the same thing or the results of that. From what I hear, housing's tough to find. I know there's a big market there. I know the commercial space right now is pretty limited because we're searching for the same things that people call us, looking for that 10,000 square foot building or 80,000 square foot building or 20 acres or 15 acres of property. On the legislative side, we were fortunate this year to make it through the budget process. We'll be doing some infrastructure improvements out at the bluffs, at least right there in front of the Ascend Manufacturing and the property that's going on up to the road that actually goes on up into Ascend as well. And so that's that's a project that we've been working on and trying to get legislative support on for the last couple sessions. And this year we actually made it through. So hopefully we'll be putting together an RFP to actually improve that road infrastructure. It's if you've been up that way, it's a it's a pretty rough triangle that tries to connect Old Kim Strand Road, New Kim Strand Road, as well as the property, the two roads that go out to Ascend and Exxon, as well as up to ECUA. So we think this can be a great sort of start for that project up there. And then we'll also kind of open up the door and help us be able to really kind of market some additional property up around there for heavy industry. And so I'm sure you all have followed and read in the newspaper and others, what the Bluffs is for heavy industry. Like I said, Ascend and IP type companies and support companies out there. And then we've been advocating and fighting very hard for outlying Field 8 to allow us to have enough space in the future for light manufacturing type projects, advanced manufacturing type projects, which would be probably more in line with Hitachi type companies that are here in the community, Paul Life Sciences that are here in the community. Those types of high wage, high growth jobs we think would be good for a portion of outlying Field 8. And so we've been advocating for that. So our hope is maybe towards the end of the summer, the county will be through its planning and zoning process, and we'll be able to begin to really market and try to move companies and opportunities for that piece of property as well. So it's again, so that's kind of really been on the positive side. So, and I've got some questions. I'll be happy to jump on those here in just a minute. The tech park, well, let me see, let me back up. The Navy Federal real quick. Yes, even though they made some transitions to basically to their houses or to home and doing remote working, we think that transition went really well. They have finished their latest construction projects, or pretty close to it. I'm not exactly sure we know what their transition plan is back into full office operations, whether that'll be scaled back, where not as many people go into the office. I think any future construction plans, while they not formally have told me this, my assumption is those will probably be on hold for a little while until they kind of determine who's going to work from home and who's going to work in the facility. But now, as far as the hiring strategy and hiring growth for Navy Fed, we've not heard anything to the contrary. They're continuing to average somewhere between 300 and 400 people per year. They have a commitment to hire 10,000 people in the community, and we have no reason to believe they're not going to hit those targets as they committed to for our community. So we still see that as a growth. So there's somewhere around 80, I think around 8,700, 8,800 currently employed at Navy Fed, with the commitment and goal to hit about 10,000. So that's continuing to track very well. Yes, two of the companies in the technology space that we're working with do have an interest in the tech park. We're working with them right now to better understand their square footage. So whether that ends up being one big building or two smaller buildings, we don't know right now, but that's very positive. We think we may end up building one building with multiple tenants and still have some spec space left over. But again, we're probably about halfway through the negotiations and discussions with those companies right now, looking at that as an opportunity for growth and for us to put some folks back into that particular building there. So the growth is tremendous. The downside that we're really tracking and watching is the workforce development side. We do have a full-time workforce development person here. His name is Jeff Dyer. And just like y'all, we've seen a lot of help wanted signs. We're trying to find out, where is the labor? The good part of the story is that if you look at our labor force, we are actually slightly above the number of people in our labor force pre-COVID. And this was months before pre-COVID. So as far as the number of people that are in the labor force, we're above those numbers. So we're quote back to normal. And also the same number of people employed are back to pre-COVID numbers. So what we don't quite know yet, and hopefully we'll find out moving through the summer, is have we had that many new people move into the community that have upped those numbers, and there's still a significant number of people that are sitting on the sidelines and have not entered back into the workforce, or do those individuals really don't exist? We just don't know right now. So we're trying to track that. We're trying to figure that out. Obviously, our hospitality numbers are still down, but we're not able to pinpoint the other industry sectors where people transitioned to. But when you look at the labor force number and the number of people employed, we're back to pre-COVID numbers. So the data is, confusing right now to us. We're obviously, hopeful that, the government or the state government, kind of moving away from the extra monthly payment may move some more folks back into the workforce, because we know that's really been a challenge right now with our hospitality industry, with our building and trade industry, not being able to find the employees that we're looking for to continue to match the growth and the expansion that we're seeing across all industry sectors. So that's sort of one of those things where we won't know for a while where that's going to land. But that also tells us that there's people out there working, people out there spending money, people out there continuing to be encouraged about our community and our growth. Our small business incubator did get damaged by the hurricane. We hope to have all renovations and that building actually back up and running here by the end of the month. We've been working with our tenants that had to leave the building, so we should be back to a little bit over 50% occupancy, by the end of the month. The other tenants that we had in there, some of our larger tenants were ready for graduation anyway, and they've transitioned into the community and found other space, which is great. That's exactly what we want them to do. And we'll be out there pounding the pavement and looking for good new startup companies to fill in the other half of the space as we kind of do our ribbon cutting and our opening and get that facility back up and running. So that's so I know that'll make our incubator manager happy, and we'd love to see those companies get back in there and providing the assistance that we need to, and hopefully turning good companies and good tenants and good customers for you guys as soon as we can get them in and get them out. So that's going very well as also. I'm gonna stop for a minute. Be happy to answer any questions that you have, but it's been great. It's been a busy time.
Anybody else have any questions for Scott?
Hey,
Wendy,
Scott,
there were
it's
some
Mike.
questions in the chat box that I think would be interested.
I think he's already addressed those.
Hey, Scott, just real quick, it's Mike. What do you think the likelihood of us getting more of that real heavy industry is? I mean, we really haven't seen, other than an Ascend or International Paper, I don't know of anybody that's come that I would call heavy industry in our area in many, many, many years. Are we attractive for that type of business? And at the Bluffs, do we expect to see things like that, or maybe a scaled down version of that?
Yeah, I mean, we have one large site that's really sort of suitable for that, and which is kind of in that further north section of the Bluffs. It's a good 250, 300 acres above ECUA. We're working with them on that property. Obviously, they'd like to see a reuse water type company, so that that obviously is good for them. It's good for us. Those projects are out there. They're just far and few between. That's the thing. They just don't come around very often. But again, we've got a piece of property that's a very long hold. And so our hope is that as those opportunities come about, then we'll actually have something that we can present. Well, we have presented on a couple of them over the last 5 years. We have competed. We've submitted sites and information. I will say those larger projects, a good portion of them have an international connection, and COVID shut all that down. So even the ones that we were working, because most of those, at least in the past, have been FDI, foreign direct investment projects. They can't even get over here. So that whole process sort of ground to a halt. Hopefully, moving into the summer into next year, we'll see the foreign direct investment projects pick back up. So most everything we've been working has been domestic over this last year. We really haven't seen anything, other than Hangar 2 with the Singaporeans. We've not seen any real international work for a year and a half now.
No, one time.
A while back at the Gulf Power Symposium, they had some consultants in, and there was a big initiative on shovel-ready sites. The pre-certified sites. I know you were involved with that. So is that still active, or is the Bluffs and some of the other areas you mentioned, are they part of that program?
Yeah, we are. We'll have the Bluffs prepared for the next round of that. And then my hope is for the industrial section of outlying Field 8. My intent is to have that certified as well. But it's a good program and definitely something we want to make sure that we're tied into.
Yeah, and back to our roots, I just had a question, back to our utility roots. You know, with the changes going through with Gulf Power being acquired by basically NextEra Energy Resources, which is the parent company of FPL. You know, it seems to be, as I travel about the region, you know, I've seen, it looks like some of the offices are empty. They may have, you know, shifted people, and COVID obviously plays a role in that as well. But do we have any sense of whether they're going to do an expansion in the area, whether they're going to maintain? And, you know, I don't like rumors, myths, and legends. So I thought that you might, you know, just have some insight on that.
Sure. You know, from what we're hearing, you know, they're still about a year and a half away from that full transition, and then going to the Public Service Commission and going through the process of an actual full merger. You know, again, while they've been acquired, the state of Florida still sees them as basically two independent utility companies from a PSC perspective. So there's still Gulf Power and Florida Power and Light. I think once they make that final, you know, transition to operate as one company, we'll have better clarity on, you know, what's going to happen with the current building, with, you know, exactly what their growth strategy is going to be. So I think right now it's just sort of in limbo.
Yeah, just a footnote for that, for you and for everybody, I guess. So they did file, and they're going to basically combine the two companies, and the two companies will be under FPL. And so what they filed to the Public Service Commission right now is there'll be a bump in rates for 2022. Okay, the rates will go up 2022 a little bit for residential and commercial customers, and then from 2022 to 2026, I believe, the rates will basically, they want to levelize the rates with FPL rates, which is approximately 25% less than the national average. So I mean, that's another, I think, another thing we have in our favor for companies that want to come our way, because utility rates are lower than, you know, most of the places in the United States.
Yeah. So we're tracking that, and again, I think that's definitely going to be one of the upsides of you know, of NextEra, you know, being the parent company and their vision and what they do. So I think that's something that will definitely be helpful. But if y'all that are in the utility industry, you know, everything that Gulf Power has is in their current rate base and their current rate structure, which kind of limits their ability to repurpose or resell or take stuff out of that. And obviously with the impending merger of the two companies, it really doesn't make sense to make any big decisions right now.
Scott, the new pipeline coming down for Gulf Power, can that be tapped by the Bluffs and on up north of PCUA for, say, a company that has intensive use of natural gas?
Most definitely, yeah. I mean, they're private pipelines, and so my understanding is they're not dedicated use. You know, it obviously would be a significant user to be able to do a direct tap off of those lines, but the short answer is yes. For direct tap purposes, and up in that area, we're still not in any specific franchise area, so I think we'd have some flexibility there. Good question.
So I have a question, and I want to say it looks like this is your 10-year anniversary, so happy anniversary to Pensacola. But if you could give us a history on the Bluffs. I know last time you came to see us, you know, you told us about how many millions and millions and millions of dollars the state had spent on like studying the area and how much work you guys have done on it. But if you could just give us kind of in a nutshell, as realtors, how we can sell that area and what the future looks like.
Certainly. Yeah, so, you know, obviously a big part of what we did is because it was such a large piece of property and a couple, you know, significant owners of it. You know, a lot of that had to be done to make sure that we knew where we could build, what was usable, what was upland, and we have a pretty good idea or track of that property now. You know, what we're asking for our, you know, for individuals again is because it is being intentionally reserved by ECUA and Ascend. for compatible large users. So it's not open just to, to go out and to build something or to put in a warehouse or speculative space. It has to be an end user that ties back into either upstream or downstream of those two companies, which really why I said it goes back to, it really lends itself to some type of heavier user that either needs a lot of water and sewer, a potential manufacturer of a sand nylon type product, or can use some of the byproduct that comes out of a sand. I mean, a sand has a lot of high pressure steam. They've got a lot of other chemicals that come into and out of that facility out there that obviously helps with their long-term cost recovery as well. So those are really kind of our targets. So as far as working with y'all, we'd love to do it. But the reality is it's such a special use piece of property that it's going to be one of those probably larger things rather than some of the smaller things that we're all used to in and around the rest of the county. But love to continue the conversation with you guys and to do that. But right now we've been successful in continuing to get the support. We do get inquiries from the state of Florida because of their support into the project, which has been great. But like I said, there are those bigger, longer, and most of those are FDI type projects. So they're just longer term. I think if one of those was, when those things come, then I think we'll have more out parcels, or we'll know actually what the out parcels will be. And then we'll be looking to fill those up with smaller projects or support projects in the future. So that's really kind of, I guess, where it is. And that was the history on it as well. As when we looked around the community, we wanted, or we still think it's a great advantage for our community, unlike a lot of places in Florida, to be able to handle heavy industry. We're probably one of the few places in the state that have the property and the infrastructure to handle those types of projects, and the state's well aware of that. They just only come around about every 3 or 4 years for us to be able to compete for projects of that size. So,
hey Scott, one more question. It's Mike. I've heard you talk before about how the attracting the big industry and these out of town people is kind of the sexy part of what you do, and that's what the public seems to ask about and seems to see. But in most towns like ours, doesn't most of the growth come either from existing business or new startups and the smaller, entrepreneurial type businesses? And how involved in those things is FloridaWest?
Sure. No, that's a great question, Mike. And I mean, it's always true. And you got to kind of remember, you sort of have to sort of split that conversation a little bit, because you have your chamber of commerce businesses, which are all your small businesses and existing business that live off of the community, which means all of their sales are basically internal to to our trade area. Which is great. It's all of our restaurants, all of our service businesses, but again, they're living off of the community. All the companies that we work with make products and services sold outside the region. And so that's the difference between what the chamber focuses on and what we focus on, is who your customer is. So yes, even though a lot of our growth is from existing business, there's still existing primary industry sector companies. So when Ascend expands or IP expands, or the 14 other expansion projects that we're currently working, I would say 95, if not all of those companies, are making products that are sold outside the region, and so therefore they're importing wealth. So usually at some point in time, those companies were a new company, and now they're an expanding company. So yeah, we definitely see a lot of existing business and industry expansion, which is great. It's exactly what we want. And I'd say that's probably, we probably tracked about the same, probably 70% of our new jobs or new projects that actually happen are with our expanding, tech companies, innovation companies, and manufacturing companies that we support here in the community. And only 20% is a new Singapore Technologies, or a new major warehouse distribution project, or a new manufacturing project. But your hope is then they become the 80% 2 years later. So that's part of why that's definitely part of why we do both. We probably visit with 150 plus companies every single year. Some that we're just checking on to make sure that they're doing well, and some that are calling us with specific projects for expansion. So existing industry business work is a big part of that. Our incubator, yeah, we've seen some great success out of that. We've probably worked with 30 companies, and the 8 years that we've really been focused on the collab, the incubation. We had 4 graduates last year, and they probably added another 30, 40 jobs to the community. Each one of those companies that came out of the collab. So we're excited about those companies, and they do great things. Some of the probably ones that y'all know, the 2 the bigger ones that some of y'all may know is obviously Dr. Gupta's company that does the retinal scanning, Iris. So they came in with about 3 people, and they left with around 25 when they graduated the incubator, and bought a building downtown, renovated it. And I think they're at 35, 40 people now at hire, working for their company directly out of Pensacola. Another one is a company called EBI. They're a government contracting. Had two retired Navy guys that used to work government contracting in cyber and IT out at Corey. Formed a company and have grown it, and they bought a building downtown, and I think they're up to 27, 28 folks. And they came in with 2 guys and an idea, and so they kept growing and getting more contracts, and they do a lot of DoD contracting in the area, in the community right now, which is again, they're growing and doing some really neat things. We've seen 2 government contracting companies out of Huntsville show up during COVID. So they're major companies doing work all across the Panhandle, and they decided to make Pensacola their satellite corporate office to support all of the military bases in Florida. And so they're downtown renting small offices now, and we're hoping to see them continue to grow. They've got significant growth plans here in our community, and so those are exciting things as well. That you don't see the big brand new build, but all of these companies are probably starting wage, for most of their folks are probably in the $80,000 and up in wages for the community. So those are great projects as well.
Scott, last week we had the PAR forum, and we had Amy from the port. The port's amazing things going on at the port. It seems like it's growing, and Blue Origin. So I know they have a pretty big stake in South Florida, but I mean, any possibility that there'll be some growth for Blue Origin or some of their ancillary suppliers or businesses?
Yeah, we definitely hope so. We obviously, and yeah, Amy and Clark and Rebecca there at the port have done a tremendous job over the last couple of years, really working, to be able to move forward and turn the port to where it's definitely, making some good money and doing what we need to do as far as a port facility. So no, we're excited and proud for them, and want to continue to see that growth. Yeah, no, Blue Origins, they're working down there every day, retrofitting that vessel. Hopefully we'll get it to the point where they're it's taking out for its trials and doing what it's supposed to do, which is to basically catch rockets. So that's its goal. It's supposed to basically catch the booster rocket and then hopefully come back to Pensacola and fix whatever the rocket destroyed, when it lands. So we hope to continue to be sort of the home port for that. And so as long as we're doing that, then I think we'll continue to see significant commitment. Now I keep hearing rumors that he's either bought or are searching for a second vessel. So everything we're hearing, the team and the port did a great job on this one. So our hope is that there's always one in port, either fixing one or rotating one out, and it's going out and doing its mission. So I think they like the Port of Pensacola, the ease of moving their crews in and out of here. So everything we hear has been extremely positive for their experience here and the company that's actually doing the work with it, which is offshore inland. But it's an exciting vessel to have in port, because it's not just fixing the vessel itself like what we're used to. My understanding, it will be the first U.S. flagged fully autonomous vessel of that size. So it's going to have a lot of high tech and technology, built into that bridge to run that thing, basically by a chase vessel. So it's
That's great to be like,
yeah,
will be
so
like an
pretty neat.
amphibious MRO, right? Like the out at the airport, but this will be the amphibious one. So
That's really kind of what it is now. I mean, it really is. It's sort of MRO for marine. It's a marine MRO. Is really what offshore Inland does. And so so we continue to upgrade the skills. Pretty unique work, and so we want to continue to see that type of activity at the port. And then obviously, what we really want to do is we want to see more of the R&D. I think as they work through this, and then if we are successful in sort of being the home port, then you really kind of start getting into the R&D for that type of activities that supports the space industry.
there's another question in the chat. Can you see it, Scott?
Yeah,
Mr. Brooks?
all right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely go dogs. So we've got once COVID's over. Now, one of the things that we really have done too, especially with the startup weekend, and that's a great question. Early on, we actually partnered with Quint Studer in the spring. Because even with our collab, our collab tenants have to meet the same definition. You have to be working on a product or service that's going to be sold outside the region. And again, and a lot of other entrepreneurs in our community are looking for home-based businesses, retail and service-based businesses. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to jointly work together and do startup weekend type activities. And best practices to basically create more businesses in general. And then what we'll do is we'll graduate the ones over into the collab or the incubator that meet our definition. Folks that have other incubators and co-work space in the community, they can pick up the clients and things that make sense. So it really kind of made sense for all of us to come together and look at sort of like startup weekends and also other programs. So one that will probably be announced here pretty soon. Quint did what they called G-Beta, or part of the Generator program. It's a nationally recognized accelerator program, which has had two 5-company efforts over the last year, and those I think have been really successful. The companies have done a great job with that. They have what they call a G-Alpha, which is almost like a startup weekend, except for I think it's like a 4-week program instead of just a long weekend. And so hopefully that will actually be announced sometime this summer, and they'll be taking their first class. So people will go into G-Alpha, perfect their idea. If it elevates that point, they may go into G-Beta, which is an accelerator program, or they may come into the collab, because we're basically a 3-year program. So we're a 3-year hands-on mentoring assessment program for companies, high growth companies in the community. So between all of those efforts, I think we're seeing a really strong entrepreneurial ecosystem really being built out between us, the university, Pensacola State, are playing roles in this, as well as Student Community Institute and some of our other co-working entities in the community to really help grow and support and nourish our entrepreneurial community here. And it's really taking off. So I'm excited about that. So just a quick wrap up. Remember, we do everything from workforce development, existing industry work, going after new companies to come in, and site development and product development. So any thoughts, ideas, referrals, and again, everything we do is confidential. So I mean, if you have a client and you call me, it's your client. We're there just to support you. So if there's anything that we can do to be helpful, we definitely want to do it. There are still a few tools in the toolbox, everything from ad valorem tax exemptions. Triumph money is there. It's a little more difficult to use if it's all private. It is for public infrastructure, but we can get pretty creative in what we define as public infrastructure now. So if you're got a client and having a tough time trying to figure out how to make it work, give me a call. I'll be happy to brainstorm with you. And if we can find a resource that helps that project come here or makes y'all successful, I'll be happy to talk to y'all one-on-one about those things.
Thank you, Scott. I think I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to add that If anybody on the call has a topic that they'd like to see in the future, or a speaker, potential speaker, or speak themselves, please let us know. And there'll be a survey that goes out after this, and we want to try and make the forum, it's for all of us, and not, it's for open to everyone. And we'll take July off, but August, we're, as President Mike said, we look forward to being in person, and there will be a hybrid option for those that don't want to be in attendance, but maybe they're not feeling well or for some other reason. But thank you for your participation, Scott. Thank you for all you do. And you're the, like I said, relentless champion of economic development.
Thank you, Scott, so much.
Of course, anytime. Y'all take care.
Thank your staff. They were awesome to work with.
Oh, of course. No, thank you, Robin. I got a great team. I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, you do.
Good job, Scott. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye now.